Hello everyone, my name is Makeda Voletta, and in case you don't know me, I am also known as the body scientist. Um, and I have a background in exercise and sports science. Graduated from the University of Delaware in 2003 with a specialty in strength and conditioning and sports nutrition. So that's geared towards not just training the body to look good, but training the body for performance. So like, what can your body do? We're only as strong as our weakest link. Sports nutritionists, what we do is help people eat for performance. People who have to go hard every single day, they have to eat and refuel themselves so that they don't pass out, so that they don't hit the wall, so that they're able to go hard every day. So sports nutritionists, we're like a step up from a regular nutritionist, because if you're an athlete, if you want to go hard every day, it's a given that you don't want to get sick. So the not getting sick part and healing everything part is important because you need that for your strength. But as a sports nutritionist, we take it to the extra level. Like if we have somebody that is, has to go to the weight room for 2 hours every day, swim for 2 hours every day, and then go do a different type of training 6 times a week because they're on a college level swim team or they're a professional swim athlete, and they have to train hard every single day and be able to go hard in days of competition. They can't play around. And so, or if you're a performer, you're Beyonce, she can't have a cold or a day of a major performance. She can't be feeling weak or have a migraine. So as a sports nutritionist, that's what we do. As a strength and conditioning specialist, as an exercise and sports scientist, I study muscle physiology, biomechanics, muscles, bones, movement, the types of movements that translate into a stronger, more functional body. And prior to that, I was a biotechnology major. And I was really dedicated and passionate about finding cures for genetic diseases, okay? So I was a real science nerd, very much into science, the biological sciences, the health sciences. I've studied, biology is the study of all living things, so I've studied more than just humans. Now, with that being said, I would like to say that I have realized that Western science, even though I do have a background in Western science, and there is a good reason to have a background in Western science, especially when we're dealing with modern chemicals and medications and things. It's important to understand what these chemicals are, okay? So, and then if you're evaluating studies, even, a lot of people evaluate studies that they haven't read, and they don't have the scientific background to even understand if they did read them. Now, I have noticed that Western science has not confirmed anything that we don't already know, okay? So we find out there's a lot of antioxidants in blueberries. People knew that. That's why they ate them. We find out there's a lot of antioxidants in acai. People knew that. That's why they ate them. So I don't believe that there's anything new under the sun. It is incorrect that people are living longer now than we ever had before. Some people recite that myth that people are living longer and stronger than we ever have since we've been on the planet. That is totally not true. People are sicker now than we ever have been since being on the planet. There's an epidemic of every disease. Genetic diseases, degenerative diseases, infectious diseases, and chronic diseases. There's autoimmune diseases. All of those diseases are on the rise. 15 years ago, nobody knew what lupus was or vitiligo. Now, every other day, you see somebody with vitiligo, somebody with lupus, people with Graves' disease and Crohn's disease. Okay, so all these things are becoming more and more common. Now we have super strains of viruses and bacteria going around. So I have noticed that with modern medications, all those medications, they come from scientists, biotechnologists going into the rainforest, going to the Amazon, going into Africa, going to indigenous people all over the world, finding out the herb they use. Then they activate the active compound, and then they make it into medication. And the side effects come from the fact that whenever you isolate something, and the same is true with vitamins, okay? When you just take vitamin A by itself, vitamin A is supposed to be with vitamin D. It's supposed to be with lots of long-chain saturated fats. It's supposed to be with calcium. It's supposed to be with all those things so that it can be metabolized properly. When you have vitamin A or any vitamin by itself, it's like a drug, and there are side effects. So same thing is true with herbs. When you take the so-called active compounds, not knowing that active compound, it must be with everything else in that plant to be balanced and work properly. Then when you're dealing with herbs, it depends on what you're using it for, how you use it, you may smoke an herb, you may beat yourself with an herb, you may scrub yourself with an herb, you may boil it and drink it as a tea, you may use it as a yoni steam. There's a lot of different things depending on the herb and what you're using it for. So when dealing with herbs, it's very particular to the person and the condition they're in. Now, traditional herbalists in African cultures, Native American cultures, Asian cultures, none of them are vegans, number one. Number two, they evaluate people before they recommend any herbs. They don't just recommend, like, oh, this is the herbal formula to cleanse your gut, and this is the herbal formula if you want to get pregnant, and this is the herbal formula to cleanse whatever they claim to cleanse. That's not how herbalists operate. If you go to a Chinese herbalist, a traditional African herbalist, there's a lot of things that they have to look at and evaluate. Okay, it's very personal. Then there are very distinct instructions for each herb. Okay, so I don't recommend just dealing with herbs all willy-nilly. Now, being a traditional herbalist in Chinese culture, Native American culture, African culture, Polynesian, it usually was something that's passed on by generations, something somebody was born into. There are deities associated with the hunt. There are deities associated with herbs. And a lot of times, like, we have deities like Ochosi. Ochosi is very popular in Brazil, an Afro-Indigenous deity who is responsible for keeping balance in the forest. But Ochosi was also a great tracker. And Ochosi, she was a hunter. And she was connected to the herbalist too. Because you want to keep balance in the forest. Plants and animals are living. Humans, all humans, have depended on plants and animals for our life and our subsistence. Whether it be drums, all cultures have drums that are part animal skin, part plant. Nobody killed an animal and nobody killed a plant just to make a drum. Indigenous people recognize that all of those things were living. Herbalists recognize that plants are living. That's the reason why they sing to them. Okay, that's the reason why they talk to them. So when you eat plants, whether you cook them or lacto-ferment them or eat them just raw, you are killing them. They're dead when you eat them. Okay? Same thing with animals. So there's so much propaganda spread by the vegan community about live foods, and you look around the world, you see 4 things that all cultures have in common. All cultures ate meat on the bone. Okay? No matter where you go in the world, you go to somebody's grandmother's house in Asia, in Africa, the Caribbean, down south, they ate meat on the bone. Also, organ meats is something, number 2, that all indigenous people ate. The liver, the heart, the eyeballs, the brains, and like heals like. People like to talk about, foods that look like the thing that it heals, and they do it with plants. But the same is true with animal foods. Eating eyeballs is good for your eyeballs, okay? My friends from Jamaica and Haiti who grew up eating fish head soup and they ate the eyeballs, they had perfect eyesight. There are stories of Native Americans here in America seeing white people going blind in the woods and giving them deer eyeballs to eat. And I remember in nutritional biochemistry, we learned that vitamin A, which the chemical name is retinol, like retinol, is stored in the eyeballs. It's the number 1 source. Number 2 is in the liver, okay? And so there's no plant source of vitamin A. There's a plant source of beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is not vitamin A. We need lots of saturated fat to convert beta-carotene into vitamin A, and that conversion doesn't usually work in babies and old people and people with metabolic issues, okay? So that's why people all over the world ate liver, especially when they were getting ready to have babies or they're pregnant. They consume raw dairy, which is very high in vitamin A, vitamin D, calcium, just the long-chain saturated fats, all which are needed. The long-chain omega-3 fats, which are needed for your brain, they only occur in animal foods, and you need them to absorb your vitamin A. So with that being said, I've thought this issue of Afrocentric vegans has been ridiculous for a long time. A lot of times I ask Africans, my African friends, like, what do you think of these Afrocentric vegans over here that try to say that Africans were originally vegans and all this stuff? And they laugh. They think it's ridiculous. They don't know where people got that from. It really is disrespectful because it's like you're appropriating a culture halfway. You can't claim all this Africa stuff and then you're eating fucking like tofu burgers and you're speaking down about people who hunt and hunting traditions, which all of us come from, and you're speaking down about people who consume raw dairy, which many Africans do. I know people from Cameroon. My friend from Cameroon, She said that she grew up drinking raw milk all the time. The person who had the milk used to bring it to everybody. She tells me that the strongest people in her village, she grew up in Cameroon, the strongest people in her village were the men who ate pork. They'd be working out in the fields, physical labor, all day long, from sun up to sundown, and they never complained, and she said they ate lots of pork. She grew up eating pork too, and she's like a 5'11" Amazon, strong bones, strong muscle, very strong. She could beat up most men. Like a real Serena body, you know? And so I remember, I started eating pork again when I went to Haiti in 2010, 2 months after the earthquake, and I saw some of the strongest people I've ever seen in my life. I saw an old woman there who were walking up mountains with heavy things in her head, not even holding on to it. And they eat lots of pork in Haiti, and I was like, you know what? This can't be true. Because people in my own family have lived to be well over 100, and they eat pork. Every time they do an interview of the oldest person in the world, and you can look at it, they always ask them, doesn't matter if they're in Cuba, Mexico, Peru, Brooklyn, Japan, they ask them what they ate, and they say they ate bacon. Pork is always a part of it, and eggs. Usually they ate bacon and eggs. That seems like to be the breakfast of champions. Not cereal. They don't say I had Wheaties and wheatgrass juice and salad. No. And so if we look at the healthiest people on our planet, the healthiest people currently on the planet, look at the healthiest people in your family. Who are the longest living, healthiest people in your family? And what did they eat, honestly? Do you have anybody in your family who lives to be over 100? Or over 90? Or over 95? What did they eat? Now, I know in my family, nobody was a vegan. And I know from studying, the history of the world, that's a very new thing. I was just in California talking to a Senegalese man about this whole AfroCentric vegan thing, and he thought it was absolutely absurd. And he's like, the first time he ever heard of vegan is when he went to Europe. When he went to Europe, that's the first time he had ever heard of that, okay? So you have these black people over here who are trying to be Afrocentric, and they're a vegan, when that shit comes from Europe. But then they're so anti-white. But then the French, who eat lots of cream and butter and lard and duck fat, they're the second longest living, healthiest people in the world. And Americans think that French food is unhealthy. French food is very healthy. And Americans ate the same way. I highly suggest that you take a look at the work of Weston A. Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. I've spent many years researching, reading theories. Nobody has done better research than Weston A. Price. He went all around the world in the 30s. He studied indigenous people all around the world. Looked at artifacts, took the foods from their indigenous diets, went to a laboratory, analyzed how much vitamin A is in this, how much vitamin D is in this, how much fat is in this. He noticed, how there are people, women gave birth with ease for generations, gave birth to several babies with ease, no problem. There's a lot of things that he noticed and documented. One thing that he thought he was going to find a vegan, vegetarian population, and he didn't. And so I highly suggest looking at the work of Weston A. Price, because no one has done anything like that, and you can't dispute it. People that try to dispute his work, they haven't read it. Read it for yourself. Weston A. Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's based in indigenous science and indigenous diets, and also has the science to back it up. Okay? Nobody has done work like this. And so, Sebi has passed recently, and I don't call him Dr. Sebi, and that's no disrespect, but he's not a doctor, and I never put him on the pedestal that everybody else did, because I look at everybody critically. I don't jump on bandwagons, and I don't just say, oh, yeah, this person is Afrocentric, and they're black, and they're melanated people, so I'm going to believe them. That's a downfall, because melanated people don't always do the best research. Melanated people can be scam artists, too, and melanated people can do bad research, And he was never a melanated person that I trusted. I've known a couple of people that have died in his care, and it was very, shady type of stories. One person who I met, 12 years ago, when I met him, he was a little skinny guy, and he was all about Sebi's products, and I remember I looked at them, they didn't make sense to me, because I always thought critically. I don't just take something because somebody tells me it's good. I'm not programmed that way. I wasn't raised religious with yes, Jesus, yes, pastor, just believe that, don't question it. No, that wasn't me. So this so-called friend of mine, he ended up dying in Dr. Sebi's care. And it was a very weird story. But I remember he didn't look healthy to me to begin with, and he was taking all these Sebi products, and he looked like he was starving to death. Now, Sebi, I said for a long time, just had this conversation when I was in California, about Sebi in Layla, Africa, how they both look so skinny and emaciated and sickly to me. Yes, Sebi was 83, but I know people in New York who are 89 who are stronger than that, and they move around all day. They take the subway, they walk up hills, they go to the supermarket, they play soccer in the park, you know. And so he just didn't look like a strong person to me. He didn't look like he had the strength to walk up a hill or do some physical activity. So it's not just about sitting there and talking. It's about what can you actually do with your physical body, you know? And the curing of all these diseases, well, there are many protocols to kill a lot of those diseases. They're not like, a lot of these things that we're told is incurable, it's not incurable. And there are many protocols, and they don't require being a vegan. You don't have to become a vegan to get rid of cancer. You don't have to become a vegan to cure autoimmune diseases, because there was a time on this planet when none of that existed. And people weren't vegans, I have a video on here called Examining Vegan Propaganda. You should take a look at it. But I know that in Honduras, people often lived to be older than 83, and they were physical. Dominican Republic, Cuba, Brazil, down south. 83 is not that old. And they were still physical. So I know some people will say, like, oh, they think they killed him, they think the stress of being in jail. But when the earthquake happened in Haiti, there were people who were older than 83 who lived through that stressful situation. And so when you don't eat a diet for strength, you don't have a strong body, a little bit of stress, you can't take it. I'm just saying that if somebody, I do what's shown to work over time. You don't have to know how to read any scientific studies to just see what has worked over generations all over the world. Many generations who produce healthy, strong beings who live long and strong. What did they eat? And all around the world, you see similar things, but you don't see vegan stuff. That's very new. So when people want to experiment with that, and the number one leader dies at 83, it's like, wow, okay, that's not a lot of good evidence for me, because people in my family live older than that on a regular basis, and they're not even eating anything organic. I don't know. So the other thing is, after I never always felt some kind of way about him, even though one of my aunts, helped give some money to him, somebody I know, in the beginning in the 80s. So I've known who he was. But the more that I heard things that he said, it just didn't make sense to me. And I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon. I think critically. I do a lot of research, and I have a scientific background to understand, and I check with indigenous people. So there are people in Honduras who live really long, longer than 83, long and strong, and they are eating meat on the bone and organ meats and lacto-fermented vegetables and bone broth, And I look at his products just now on the website, and I see products that are being sold for $1,500, $750, and when you read it, he makes all these claims like, oh, it's going to revitalize your cells and da-da-da. Doesn't explain how at all. I look for the ingredients, because when I work with clients, I always evaluate products, and I look at what they're taking, and I evaluate everything fairly. And when I looked at the ingredients, there's no list of ingredients. It has a list of like something might have, it says active ingredients, but then it has one thing listed. And that one thing might be an herb that you yourself can go get and prepare yourself. Why are you buying that capsule for $750? Or a tincture, which tinctures we can make ourselves. Instead of teaching people how to learn how to recognize the herbs, teaching people about the herbs, how to approach the herbs, how to make your own herbal infused oils, your own tinctures, your own herbal supplements, and do that, naturally, because you're closer to the source and plants are living, and herbalism is supposed to be personal like that. It's not about taking capsules. And how can you recommend capsules to people? You haven't even evaluated or had a conversation, but you're selling them $1,500 worth of products that you don't say what it is. You make all these claims. You've never had a conversation with the person, never evaluated them to even see what's going on in their body. That's not how traditional herbalists work. Everybody is different. You cannot take a one-size-fits-all prescription for herbs and give it to everyone. And then you haven't even spoken to the people to see what's going on with them. That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. People talk about doctors in the medical community, but that's just as dangerous. And why are you charging $1,500? What? I can get all the best supplements that I need, and it doesn't cost $1,500. That alone is suspect. And then they don't even get a conversation or an evaluation or sessions with you. That looks like scam artist stuff to me. And I didn't even know that before. I'm just looking at it now. And you know, there's a lot of people who are afraid to speak up because of peer pressure, or because they're afraid of discrimination. I'm not one of those people. That's why I work for myself. That's why I don't work for the hospitals, because I want to be able to tell people the truth. I've worked with clients from all walks of life, and I want to tell people the truth. I never want to be responsible for giving someone advice that starves them to death and kills them too early, that causes them to have serious hormonal problems, that causes their children to come out with health problems. Because let me tell you, I have known at least 10 women who were vegans when they were pregnant, and then vegans when they were breastfeeding, gave their sons some vegan food, and their sons get to be 2 and 3 and 4, and they're not talking, they're autistic, they're in speech therapy. And I keep seeing it happen with boys in particular. But then, and I've known some women who, like, you know, one woman I know, her son is always asking for cows and pigs. So he's telling her what he needs and what he wants as a growing boy. Some of the women have come to me for help because they could see the damage that they've done. And they wanted to reverse it, so I've had to be the one to help with that. But then the bad situation is when the women that just ignore it. And they keep starving their child. And they're like, oh, they're fine. You'll never know if your child is fine until they grow up and they try to have children of their own. Will they be able to produce healthy, strong children themselves? Will they have health problems? Like, you don't know that till you grow up. But when a child is developing, they're not little people. They're not little humans. So if somebody is grown and you're going to choose to do that, I still don't recommend it. But at least you've already gone through your developmental years. But if you're doing that to a baby or a child, this shit is so dangerous. It's child abuse. And I've seen so many women do that to their sons. You know, I just taught a class recently in California where a woman did admit that she had 2 sons, and, like, you know, one, she was eating meat. And I don't even like to talk about eating meat as animal foods, because it doesn't have to be meat. It could be raw dairy, it could be eggs, it could be seafood. But she was talking about how she was eating meat with her first son. He came out healthy and strong. And then her second, she wasn't. And he's smaller, not as strong. People notice it. And she notices her own body breaking down. But at least she had enough sense to admit that and see that and stop doing that. That's the reason why I call it veganism an eating disorder. Because people will be straight starving themselves to death, and they're still doing it. And, you know, I know a lot of people are going to hate me, but I'm just speaking the truth. Because nobody's bought me out. I don't pledge allegiance to any one group. I am my own individual. I have my own mind. I do my own research, and I think critically. I don't belong to cults. But I will say, you know, Queen of Four. I've known people men and women, who have been under her care, who've come to me with serious hormonal imbalances from all that tofu and soy milk and not consuming cholesterol, which we need for our hormones. So check out my video on that. Low cholesterol is actually very bad for you. And I see the video that she posted, you know, yesterday, speaking about how she ran all these miles for Sebi. And she looks so sunken in. Like, she looks sunken in. She looks like something from Thriller, really. You know, and it's not nice to make fun of people. I'm not trying to. This is just an honest observation. She didn't have a glow about her. Her face was sunken in, just the way Sebi looked to me. And other people that I've seen who've done that for a long time. And it's like, you don't look healthy. You're not supposed to look like that. That's what happens when you eat no fat and no animal fat. You get sunken in. You lose the glow in your skin. You have hormonal problems. You know, you have brain function problems, because our brain is made from long-chain saturated fats and omega-3 fats. So I'm just going to say that I will continue to say that veganism is an eating disorder. And people can get mad at that if they want. But on the real, the water is super polluted. Okay? We don't have a good source of water in this country or in the world. The water is polluted. But should I say, oh, I'm not going to drink any water at all, because if I drink water in a plastic bottle, I'm going to get plastic. And if I drink the water out of the tap, I'm going to get chlorine. And if I drink the water over here, I'm going to get this bacteria. So you know what? I'm not going to drink any water at all. Does that make sense? No, because we still need water. So what I have to do is find the best water that I can find and drink it. Do you see people say, like, we all know that the leading causes of death, cancer, heart disease, is not animal foods. It's sugar. It's rancid vegetable oil, like soybean oil and corn oil and canola oil. That shit causes inflammation and genetic damage. It's wheat. It is soy, you know. The most GMO, genetically modified crops. Those are the problems. That's responsible for all the inflammation and issues that people are having. But do you see anybody saying, you know what, I'm not going to eat any plants at all? I'm not going to eat any plants at all. I'm not going to eat any plants at all because they genetically modify them all. So why would I eat them? No. What people do is they try their best to find the best fruits and vegetables they can. They try their best to find non-GMO, even though there's no guarantee that what you're consuming is non-GMO, even if you grow it yourself, because the DNA travels. But you still eat it. Do you ever hear people say, you know what, I don't eat vegetables at all? I don't eat fruits and vegetables at all because I never liked the way it tastes. And then have you ever seen anybody use that as a valid excuse and that be accepted as a valid excuse? But you hear vegans say, well, I never liked the taste of meat. Okay, that doesn't mean you don't need to eat it. I don't like the taste of water. It doesn't mean I don't need to drink it. That's like, what's your point? You know? So our ancestors were not vegans. Native Americans, Africans, Asians, Polynesians, none of them were vegans. Okay? Let's deal with the real. Let's stop spreading propaganda. I don't respect that. I don't respect healthcare practitioners who lie to people just to get a whole bunch of money. You know what I'm saying? And people are trusting their life with you. So people can say that he's claimed, healed certain things. I know I've seen people die in his care. I know that a lot of those things are not impossible to cure. You don't have to become a vegan and starve yourself to death. And I would never do that, and I would never recommend it to my patients, to my clients at all. Like, it's irresponsible. There are lots of healing foods that come from animals, okay? Plants and animals are both living. They should both be respected, and we should be using what is in our local environment. The deities like Ochosi, who are responsible for balancing the forest, if you go, try to get all the acai berries and all the blueberries, and you go to supermarkets all over America, in Chicago, Detroit, New York, Philly, Boston, where there's a wintertime, and you find avocados and bananas and mangoes year-round, coconut water. It's not only is it out of season, it's not local. So now we're shipping all this stuff from the Caribbean or from Thailand. That puts all this pollution in the air. People want to talk about pollution from greenhouse gases from raising cattle. Let's talk about all the airplanes and shipping water from Fiji and shipping coconut water from Thailand and shipping stuff from the Caribbean to consume. That's not from our local environment. We should be eating local foods. How would you survive on a vegan diet if you had to use only what's around you when you live in the desert? Or you live in Illinois or Canada or New York? Really? And if it's so spiritual, then why do we have drums? All indigenous people have drums that call the spirits, and they have animals. And there are deities associated with the hunt. So please, let's stop disrespecting ancestors. Let's stop lying on ancestors. Let's stop making up shit that's not true. And I'm sure that people who want to criticize me, they're probably just going to try to diss me instead of actually stating facts and intelligent commentary. But I'm just saying, these AfroCentric vegans are fake and confused because there are no vegans in Africa. There were no vegans in Africa, and neither were Native Americans. Okay? And if you want to live long and strong, look at the populations who are living to be an average of 100 years old, and who did live an average of 100 years old, and say had all their faculties together and were physical. Let's see what they ate. See what the people in Honduras eat who live over 100. Let's use our critical thinking skills. And me as an educator, I'm always going to tell the truth. I'm always going to help tell the truth to those who want the truth, and to those who really want to live healthy and have a glow about them and be strong. That's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm not being paid off by anybody or jumping on anybody's bandwagon because they want to name themselves something Africa and call themselves a doctor, and they're not. They have no credentials. Only people that believe that are people that really don't know anything about health science or not using their critical thinking skills. Like, I see through all of that. All that stuff is not backed up in indigenous science. It's not backed up in Western science. It's not backed up in the ways and traditions of people. So I think you get the point, and I will leave it here. And if you like this video, please share it and join my YouTube page and check out my other videos. Okay? And I am available for one-on-one evaluations. You can email me at thebodyscientist81@gmail.com. See you below. Bye, guys.